My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas. To continue on with the memorandum ruling of a final trial in the interest of Georgilis versus Younger, DF 15-09887, rendered by Judge Kim Crooks of the 255th District Court in Dallas, Texas. We're going to proceed next to the findings that regarding Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton. I was very disappointed in Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton. I have gone to Bible college, I've gone to seminary, I have an understanding of scripture to some degree anyway, and here we have Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton, who's a graduate of Dallas Theological Seminary, a graduate, I believe he has 2 degrees from Biola University in California, a good Christian university, and yet Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton seemed to be affirming the LGBTQ agenda and not actually adhering to a biblical worldview perspective. This is what I saw. I was not privy to the entire report. I just saw what was presented before the court, before the jurors. So I only have a partial understanding of the report. Once again, if you are in a court, do not necessarily expect to find truth. Expect to find a story affirmed. Don't expect to find truth. If you want to find truth, you have to do your own investigative research. You've got to look at source documents. The courtroom is not a place to find truth. The courtroom is a place where one attorney tries to paint a story, convince the jurors that my story is better than his story, or vice versa, often at the expense of truth. So, the court did find that Dr. Albritton, and they'll be referring to him as Dr. Albritton, stated that I deeply understand Dr. Georgilis' desire to proceed with what is a commonly accepted course. I also felt like this situation with a lot of fluidity, and by that, which I mean this is not a standard research project. The question is, does the research apply to the children? Now, it's very interesting to me that actually Dr. Albritton talks about does the research apply to the children, because in a later testimony by Dr. Stephen Levin, he took a look at the report written by Dr. Albritton. On page 68, he said, based on this one sentence alone, I knew that Dr. Albritton did not understand the research. He did not understand the research, and therefore, if he did not understand the research, his competence on making a recommendation based on the supposed research is highly questionable, to say the least. Number 18, the court finds that Dr. Albritton stated, I concur with Mr. Younger. I'm not sure 100% of the time he shows performance for female activities, talking about James. He likes to wrestle. James likes to wrestle. He likes to run around the creek with swords and archery. I had some children who were driven just solely toward ballet or solely toward sparkle and ponies. I think there's some fluidity in terms of whether or not he meets those criteria 100% of the time. So even Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton, as much as I've criticized him, is stating that there is some type of something going on here that he's not even sure completely how to address. Because James is not only a girl in his outward appearance or his outward activity, and he's evidently not only a boy. He appears to be one with a father and another with a mother. And after divorce, you find many children have to learn to adjust to the circumstances of living with 2 parents. One parent, they live a certain way, another parent, another way. With the mother, James lived as a girl, did not want to displease the mother. With the father, he lived as a boy. Testimony given by others who knew James and Jude and whose children played with James and Jude, or grandchildren played with James and Jude, stated that James very much loved being a boy. Number 19, the court finds Dr. Albritton does not find the boys particularly mature. Well, isn't this interesting? The boys are not particularly mature, but as typical 7-year-olds. So these boys are not particularly mature, and yet Dr. Ann Georgilis wants to affirm James as a girl. And there are people in our state, such as Julie Johnson, who seem to be very happy, such as Representative Julie Johnson, who seemed to be very happy that James is being affirmed as a girl. And as I went down to Austin to testify myself, there were certain people, Representative James Tallarico, Representative Gina Kalani, that appeared to be very happy with this whole transgender ideology, even though the 7-year-old was not particularly mature. They would like to back this transgenderism stuff, the sexual ideology that at its core can be abusive to children. Number 20, the court finds Dr. Albritton stated that James told him that he was thinking a great deal about whether he wanted to be a man or a woman. And Dr. Albritton thinks this is probably consistent with that viewpoint, that there's still some fluidity in his thinking and the rest of the interview. Why is a 7-year-old thinking quite a bit about whether he wants to be a man or a woman? Why is this taking place? This is abuse to be putting him in this position that he would even have to be grappling or thinking about this issue as a 7-year-old. And I would say that the source of it would not be from the father. Number 21, the court finds that Dr. Albritton DSM-5 definition of gender dysphoria must have a marked incongruence between one's expressed gender and assigned gender for at least 6 months as manifested in 6 criteria, and B, the condition is associated with clinically significant distress or impairment in social, school, or other areas of functioning. So, and this is very interesting. It's a very important point because the DSM-5 has a diagnosis for gender dysphoria, and it has letter A and letter B. Letter A, you must have point 1, A1, plus at least 5 of the other 7 symptoms that would support the diagnosis, and it must have letter B. Now, letter B talks about there being distress or some type of stress associated with this gender, some type of distress upon the child that either impairs his social, his school, other areas of functioning. And what the child displays at least 6 of these in A, but he does not express condition B. The children did not appear distressed. And neither child is afraid of their father. So by definition of DSM-5, James did not have gender dysphoria. And the reason I say this is because the term gender dysphoria is almost asserted as a fact. He does not have gender dysphoria. He does not meet the criteria for gender dysphoria. And even I think the Judge Kim Crooks missed this in part of what she said down here. If I'm mistaken, I apologize, but I think that if I remember reading this correctly, that even she asserted gender dysphoria when there was no gender dysphoria diagnosis. Number 22, the court finds Dr. Albritton stated that he thinks Jude feels under a great deal of pressure to try to make sense of this. What twin brother wouldn't? Jude is the younger twin brother of James. He's known James as a boy his entire life. One of the things that he said at one point in time to his father when they came in after roughhousing in the backyard and were taking a shower, he looked down at James and he says, "Dad, I have one and he has one. How come I'm a boy and he's a girl?" And the court had Mr. Younger under an order. He was not allowed to tell his children why they were not both boys. I believe that was by Associate Judge Scott Beecham, spelled Beauchamp, B-E-A-U-C-H-A-M-P. Scott Beecham put that order upon the father. He was not allowed to tell his son, was not allowed to teach his son about maleness and femaleness. This is what happens in your Texas family courts. This is what these courts order. And of course, earlier we talked about due process and protecting the fundamental liberty rights of parents and stuff like that. And as I said, courts disregard that all the time, as did Associate Judge Scott Beecham. Number 23, the court finds Dr. Albritton stated that the child stated when he gets older, he could be called whatever he wants, and implicated there may be days that he doesn't feel like Luna. Number 24, the court finds Dr. Albritton stated that when I went to the home, Luna entered in a ballet costume. That wasn't specifically her, but I think Mom may have erred on the side of allowing so much freedom that maybe she's overcompensating for some of Mr. Younger's more restrictive approach. Once again, Mr. Younger is simply wants to tell James he is a boy because that's what he is. And this is somehow considered to be overly restrictive. The father needs to somehow affirm James as a girl, and if he doesn't affirm this delusion, he's overly restrictive. And the mother needs to compensate because of this overly restrictiveness by Mr. Younger and his approach. Number 25, the court finds Dr. Albritton stated when the boys were brought by the mother for a joint interview, James presented wearing high heels and a dress, and he was a little overdressed. Your typical girl might be wearing leggings and sandals, but he seemed to be pretty dramatic in his dress. And I experienced the same thing when I went to the house. Very interesting. He's not just wearing girl clothes, he's flamboyantly dressing as a girl. Does the mother have anything to do with this? Number 26, the court finds that Dr. Albritton stated that mom may have overcorrected in her transgender approach, and also by taking him to buy a flag, and that was a transgender flag. So the mother bought a transgender flag and stuck it up in James' bedroom so that whenever James woke up, he would realize he wasn't alone. There were other people that were transgender. Good mom, yay mom. Way to do this for what, a 5, 6, 7-year-old child. Way to do it. You bought that transgender flag. James, Luna, whatever your name is, Luna, you see you're not alone, Luna. There are other people like you. Here's a transgender flag. This is what mom did. It may have been overcorrecting. She might have been immersing him in that particular mindset. Oh, in other words, she may be brainwashing the child. She may be brainwashing the child. And that it would not necessarily be a good thing for it to be pushed or encouraged. Well, Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton at least got a couple of things right here. Yes, he did note that the mother appears to be brainwashing the child, pushing him in that direction, and that it would not necessarily be a good thing for her to push or encourage that type of an approach, or to push or encourage James in that direction. So in spite of the fact that Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton apparently did not understand the research, at least some of his report appeared to be right on. I questioned a lot of what I heard, and I'd like to still know how much Dr. Benjamin J. Albritton made of this from this report. This child custody report, as far as I know, cost over $20,000. I'm not sure if it's well over, if it's how much it was, but I think in the interest of full disclosure to the public, it would be nice for Dr. Benjamin Albritton to disclose how much he made off of this child custody report. This is what happens in our Texas family courts. We must get a child custody evaluator that parents must pay for. This is another hokey thing set up by our family courts that, because parents, of course, don't know the best interest of the child. Somehow the courts do. Somehow the child custody evaluator can make recommendations for the best interest of the child. And they make a ton of money off of this. Judges routinely order a child custody evaluator who basically comes up with a bunch of nonsense in some instances, sometimes comes up with some decent recommendations, but many times none of the recommendations are binding. Sometimes the recommendations are good. Sometimes the recommendations are awful. But either way, the child custody evaluator gets paid a ton of money by the parents. Parents are ordered to pay this child custody evaluator, whether he's qualified or not, whether he understands the research and the literature or not. They are required to pay him to do, or her, to write this report to help the court determine what is in the best interest of the children. I will continue on in the next video regarding some of the other findings that Judge Kim Crooks found regarding the Save James case. Thank you.